We're on page 53. Siman Tesvav. Seif Gimel. Seif Gimel. Okay. Siman Tesvav Seif Gimel, page 53. This is the Shulchan Aruch. The second bottom line of the Shulchan Aruch. Talis mitzuyetzes kehilla shecholko l'shtayim. She had the talis that had tzitzis put on correctly. V'chol chele, and he split it into two pieces. V'chol chele yesh bo shir l'sateif. He split it into two, and each side is big enough. We haven't yet learned the minimum size of a talis. We'll get there soon. But each side, each piece is big, qualifies as a talis. It's large enough to be a kosher talis. So he had a beged garment with 4 tzitzis on the 4 corners. He split it into 2. Each one's now got 2 on each. Each one's now got 2. Each one is now a 4-cornered garment with 2 tzitzis on it. Right?
Right.
So if each garment is big enough to be a talis, right, then those tzitzis that are on it are kosher. He just has to add 2 more tzitzis on the corners. Right? The chiddush is not a problem of ta'asa v'lo min ha'osui. We've discussed this concept of ta'asa v'lo min ha'osui, that the tzitzis have to be put on the garment when it's a stage of being a kosher beged. Right, we've discussed this. Ta'asa v'lo min ha'osui has to be that you put on the tzitzis and make it kosher, rather than it's made kosher with tzitzis. Right? Discuss a few examples. So here, because when the tzitzis were put on the garment, it was a kosher beged. It was kosher. He split into half, and each piece is also still a kosher garment for putting on tzitzis. It's the right size. It has 4 corners. So therefore, the tzitzis never went through a stage where they were on a garment which was possible, and therefore they remain kosher. So all one has to do is add tzitzis now to each piece of the garment, and then one can wear it.
If you say it was split, should you expect it to be completely split in the front and the back?
Right.
2 separate pieces. No, if it's split down the one side,
Right.
not referring to this.
He's splitting into a complete split into 2 separate pieces.
Completely 2 separate.
Yeah, let's talk about a talis for davening, where there's no front and back, right? It was one big piece, and the whole thing was split into 2 pieces. Okay, let's move on to Sif Dalet. Sif Dalet. Okay. Okay, this is quite a little bit complicated, this Sif. It starts with, the Gemara says that if the tzitzis tear within 3 etzbois, 3 finger breadths of the corner, then one may not sew it. If it's more than 3 finger breadths, one can. If it's less than 3 finger breadths, one can't. There's a machlokas rishonim exactly what the reason is, and depending on what the reason is, we'll see there's many different many differences come out la halacha based on what the reason is. So we're
this is
now
repairing the beged itself.
Yes, correct. Okay, so we're going to see now, we'll see the Shulchan Aruch is bringing out 2 opinions. That's of Rashi, and that's of Rav Amram Gaon, and there's 2 different opinions what Rav Amram Gaon exactly meant, what he meant. Okay, so says the Shulchan Aruch of Dalet. Nikra talis toich shloisha etzbois al mechdes vasa knaf. So the talis tore, the garment tore, within 3 finger breadths of the edge of the corner. Eino shayla toifa, he's not allowed to sew it. Okay, this is what it says in the Gemara. The question now is why, and therefore what we can actually do if it does tear there, how we can actually tie it, how we can actually sew it so there won't be a problem. Okay? Yes. Pirushashi, what's the reason? The chayshinon sheishtayim mechut hatfirov yanichenu v'yosef olav shiva chutin l'shem tzitzis. We're worried that if he sews it over there, right, he's going to, when he sews it, he's using thread. We're worried that when he finishes sewing it, he's going to have a long thread there left over. Right? When you have a thread, and he's going to use that as one of his tzitzis. He's going to add another 7 and turn it into tzitzis. Right?
It's a very different thread.
What do you mean it's a different thread?
The thread that you use for repairing a garment is a very different.
So we're going to see now. It doesn't have to be different. We're going to see now that if it's a very different thread, we're going to see it's not a problem, exactly like you said.
Okay.
Right? It doesn't have to be a very different thread. There's no reason for it to be different. It could be the same type of thread. But if it's a very different thread, then we're going to see it's not going to be a problem. Basically, because of this reason.
The thread that people use for.
You're talking about nowadays. Talking about what we use nowadays is different.
Correct.
Yeah. We use cotton thread and we use woolen tzitzis. For starters, it's a different material.
Yeah, you can use nylon thread too, for that matter.
Nylon thread. It's very different.
It's very good.
But it wasn't always that way, exactly. So
no, but what I'm saying is that what we understand about tzitzit is that it's not a single thread. The thread that's used for tzitzit is at least two threads that are spun together.
Right.
Right. You don't use that for repairing a garment. It's much too thick. It's not for sewing.
Maybe.
What?
Maybe they didn't do it. They thick
So
threads in those days.
we're going to see, like you said, that if it's a different thread, that's why it's important to understand the reason. Because of the reason Rashi gave, what comes out of it is, like you said, that if it's a very different thread, we won't have this problem. So we're going to see now. That's exactly what we're going to see now. Let's carry on the Shulchan Aruch. We're now in the middle of the second line. Okay, the first thing that comes out of this reason of Rashi is that even if it only tells a little bit, even just to make to fix a small tear is going to be problematic, because even if you fix a small tear, you're going to have this thread left over, and we're worried that you're going to turn it into tzitzis. Talis shel tzemer shenikra as toich shloisha mutar litfor ha'idno de'in derech litfor b'chutei tzemer. Says the Shulchan Aruch, what you mentioned, that therefore a woolen talis which tore within 3 etzbois, 3 finger breadths of the corner, while we sew it up nowadays. Why? Because nowadays we don't do tikkunim, we don't fix garments with woolen thread. A woolen garment has to have woolen tzitzis, right? And therefore, seeing as we don't use woolen thread to do tikkunim, to fix garments, to sew, therefore we haven't got this problem, exactly like you said, right?
There's another problem, is that what we described is a tear in the beged, not a problem with the tzitzit. So why would you begin a 5th set of tzitzit on the garment? The garment has 4 kosher sets of tzitzit.
Right.
It has a tear next to the corner,
right,
which is close to a kosher set of tzitzit.
Right.
Why would you add?
So first of all, it could be we're talking about. It could be that there isn't yet tzitzit on the garment. Could be even if there. It could be even if there. First of all, if there aren't tzitzit in the garment, you're going to put on tzitzit, then you might use that thread. And second of all, even if you already have tzitzit on, tzitzit often become possible. You might then remove it and replace the tzitzit.
Do you mind if I react to that?
Yeah.
With that logic, right, you can't even put a reinforcement on the corner.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about reinforcements very soon.
Okay.
That's what we're going to talk about. Very good. Okay. So the Shulchan Aruch said exactly like you said, that therefore if the thread that one sews with is very different to the thread one uses for tzitzis, then it's not going to be a problem. Okay, so nowadays it would be exactly like this. If we have a woolen tzitzis, use cotton thread, it wouldn't be a problem. Right. If, however, people have the talis cotton, the talisim for sure everyone uses woolen talisim. Talis cotton is 2 types. There's the woolen talisim and the cotton ones. Right, so the cotton one is still going to be a problem according to Rashi. Right, the cotton talis, a cotton thread. We mentioned that if you cast your mind back some time. For materials of threads, we mentioned that what thread can you use for to make tzitzis strings? We mentioned that woolen tzitzis strings you can always make. Whatever material of the garment, the strings can always be made out of woolen tzitzis strings. And we also said that you can also use the same material as the garment. So if it's a silk garment, you can also put on silk strings. A cotton garment, you can put on cotton strings. Right. So cotton strings would be kosher to put on a cotton garment, right? Nowadays we make them all from woolen just because it's best, because that covers every single material of garment. But it would be a problem. This halacha would still be relevant. Wouldn't be relevant for our woolen talisim, as the Shulchan Aruch says, because we use cotton string to make repairs. So it would be fine. It wouldn't be a problem according to Rashi. Whereas if one had a cotton beged, it would still be relevant. If a cotton garment would still be relevant. Okay. Let's Okay, let's continue. Let's see the second reason now. With Amram. We're now on the fourth line of the Shulchan Aruch. V'Rav Amram Pirush. The Talmud Mishum Denikra Torah Shloisha, less be Torah's beged, and command the Leise Domi. Okay. Now, if one has a piece of garment which is less than 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths, halachically it's not called a garment. We see this in many places, for example, by Tum and Tara, if it's Tomei, halachos of begodim becoming Tomei. If it's less than 3 by 3, it's not called a garment. So we find in many places that less than 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths is too small, it's got no significance, and it's not called a garment. So he says that if one has a piece of garment less than 3 by 3, it's not considered a garment. And even if one was then to sew it onto the garment, it doesn't become part of the garment. It's like something appended onto the garment, but it's not actually part of the actual garment. Okay? So Rav Amram Pirush, the Talmud Mishum Denikra Torah Shloisha less be Torah's beged. A piece of less than 3 by 3 is not called has not got the din of a garment. We command the Leise Domi, so as if it's not there, it's not part of the garment. V'avagav Totofra command the posach choshev, even if he sews it on, it's as if it's not connected. The Ovad Beit Tzitzis lo pochel talis, and if he was then to put on tzitzis on this piece that he's sewn on, it's not going to patter the talis because the tzitzis are not on the actual garment. On this extra piece he put on, it's not part of the garment. That's the reason according to Rav Amram. Right? It's a very different reason. They're going to have a very different halachic nafkaminas. Right? According to this opinion, according to Rav Amram, if it just tore a little bit, it's not a problem. It's only going to be a problem if it completely tore off. According to Rashi, we mentioned it's going to be problematic even if it has slightly. Right? According to Rav Amram, it's going to be a problem only if it completely tears off. So this piece is going to be a piece of garment less than 3 by 3, which is not considered a garment. Okay, that was the second opinion. Second opinion is clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now the third opinion, which is actually a different explanation of Rav Amram Gon. Right? It's unclear exactly what he meant. Different explanation of Rav Amram Gon. V'yesh oimim de Rav Amram lo niftal elo tzitzios shehoyu boyu be'es shetofru. Aval l'macha shetofru hitel boy tzitzis kosher. The third opinion said that Rav Amram Gon only passes it if there were tzitzis on the garment at the time when he made this alteration, when he sewed it. But if he sewed it and afterwards he put on tzitzis, then it's kosher. Okay, why is this? Let's have a look straight away at the Mishnah Berurah. This opinion is not clear in the Shulchan Aruch exactly what the reason is. So let's have a look straight away at the Mishnah Berurah to see what the reason is for this opinion. And the Mishnah Berurah Sifkot and Tes Vov, which is 3, 6, 9 lines from the bottom. Mishnah Berurah Sifkot and Tes Vov, 9 lines from the bottom. V'yesh omim de Rav Amram b'chol Svile. According to this third opinion, the Tfira Choshev Chibur. This opinion argues on the second one. It holds that if one was to have a piece of garment less than 3 by 3, which he sewed onto the garment, he appended onto the garment, it becomes part of the garment. It's not a problem. It becomes part of the garment. You can put tzitzis on that corner. That's not a problem. What is the problem? The only problem is if this piece of garment was torn off the garment and it had the tzitzis on it, and he re-sewed it on, this is a problem of Ta'aseh v'lo min ha'osrei. It now becomes part of the garment, but when it was detached, it wasn't part of the garment. So one's sewing a corner of a garment onto the garment with tzitzis already tied onto the garment, onto the corner. That had
previously been part of the garment.
That had previously been part of the garment, but currently now, they say when it's not connected, it's not part of the garment.
Right.
And therefore, it's the problem of Ta'aseh v'lo min ha'osrei.
Right.
Okay? Those are the 3 opinions. Okay, so we have 3 opinions how to understand this
But the third opinion has nothing to do with the size of the tear, or really even the position of the tear. It's simply you cannot sew tzitzit back on.
So according to the third opinion, it's not a problem to re-sew it back on if the piece had the halacha of a garment. If this corner was more than 3 by 3,
with tzitzit on it,
it would be okay to sew it back on. It would not be tasbin amas according to this opinion. Yeah.
Why?
Because it was previously part of the garment. It was previously on the garment. It was when the tzitzis were tied. They were tied onto the kosher garment, onto the garment that's kosher.
Right.
It then becomes detached. Right. At the stage when it's detached, it's still on a piece of garment which has got a din of a beged. It's called a garment, and it's then reattached onto the same garment it was on originally.
Okay, that
and
I
therefore
understand.
it's not a problem with Tasav Luminos.
And if it's too small a piece, then we say even with tzitzit on it, it doesn't have the status of a garment.
Correct, because at the stage it was attached, it was not attached to a garment at all, and therefore resewing it on is a problem with Tasav Luminos. And we're not actively turning it into tzitzit.
I have to ask another question because it's a practical question. Let's say a person tzitzit, the corner tears off.
Right.
And you have another pair of tzitzits where the beged itself is torn, but the corners are in good shape.
Okay.
And you take a piece of that garment that is bigger than the 3-finger length, right, with tzitzit on it. You can't sew that onto the garment.
He's sewing it onto a different garment.
Yeah.
No, it would be if it's on the same garment.
So it has to be from the turn.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So how do we paskin now? We've seen 3 different opinions how to understand this halacha in the Gemara. 3 different reasons with very different halachas coming out of the 3 different reasons. So how do we paskin? So the Shulchan Aruch ends off in the last words of the Shulchan Aruch. V'yirei shamayim yitzes kulam heicha de'efshe. V'yirei shamayim should try and make sure that he's yitzeh all the different opinions. Right? And so try not to do anything which goes against any of these 3 opinions. Okay? But the Shulchan Aruch says heicha de'efshe. Right? He should try and use all of them wherever he can. Right? Wherever he can, meaning that if he can't, the tzitzis will still be kosher. Right? Meaning the chatchila we try and be used to all the 3 different opinions. However, b'di'evad, if he was in a situation where he couldn't be yotze, right, he had to make a tikkun, and that's all. He had to make an alteration to the garment. That's all he had. He had to fix the garment. That's all he had. If it was a cotton garment, cotton tzitzis, he would be able to do it. Right.
So all of these prohibitions that we've just said only apply l'chatchila, but the Eved, you can go forward with what otherwise seems to be not permitted.
Right. Yeah. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah cotton Yud Zayin, and then we'll see that. Mishnah Berurah cotton Yud Zayin. Heicha de'efshe. V'heicha de'lo efshe noktinon t'tisvos Rabbi Eliezer Stahl. Right, where it's impossible to be able to all the different opinions, we hold that the main opinion is the shit of Rav Amram, not Rashi. V'gam ditfir choshev chibur, meaning that we'll go with the 3rd opinion. Right? We hold that the Rav Amram that the only problem is if the whole piece was removed and I'm sewing on the whole piece, and like the 2nd opinion within the opinion of Rav Amram gone, that resewing it is considered that one has connected it onto the garment. It does become part of the garment.
Regardless of the size of the piece.
So right, it becomes part of the garment, correct, regardless of the size. So the only problem would be the 3rd opinion. Right? The 3rd opinion, it sounds like it would be ma'akev. Right? That's the one that we're actually paskening like Ikra Din, which is that if it already had tzitzis on it, if a piece less than 3, the corner less than 3 by 3 became detached, and it had tzitzis on it, one wouldn't be able to resew it onto the garment because that would be Tasav Luminos. That sounds like
Even
the
with the
opinion.
Evid.
Yeah, that sounds like that's the opinion that we're passing like Me'ikar Adin. The halacha of Rashi, not to make an alteration close to the corner, and with just lechatchila we try to be yotzid, and also the first opinion of Rav Amram, that sewing it does not make it part of the garment, and that's also only lechatchila. Okay.
Is there any difference between sewing and gluing?
Sorry?
Is there any difference between sewing and gluing? People use glue sometimes instead of thread today. I think they're the same halacha.
To use glue. Well, it would definitely gain that you wouldn't have the Rashi's problem of turning it into
Right.
tzitzis.
Right. Yeah,
But you're talking about within the second opinion, within the opinion of Rav Amram, that sewing does not make it part of the garment.
correct.
And I don't think there would be a difference between sewing and glue.
It's the same.
Right. Okay. Fine. Okay, it's 22. We'll stop here.